India needs breakthrough ideas on revving up the economy, employment and exports. Welcome to this edition of Infravisioning that zeroes in on the suggestion for Coastal Economic Zones or CEZs. CEZs achieve the objective of helping to improve exports, generate employment, attract foreign direct investment and offer a credible public works program. It has been 18 years since a Special Economic Zones Act was passed by Parliament. On paper, the results seem impressive. A total of 240 SEZs were operational with a total investment of over 5.37 trillion rupees. It is reported that over 2 million additional people have found employment in these SEZs as official statistics have claimed over the years. Yet, there is widespread view that India's SEZ policy has been less than successful. The agitations over land acquisition and controversies have meant that SEZs have acquired a reputation for political notoriety in inverse proportion to the much touted spillover effects. Various studies have provided more insight. Mayor Alcorn of Princeton University in a study in 2018 attempted to identify the impact on development indicators in a given area due to an SEZ being set up there and concluded that the net economic benefits were minimal. SEZs in India, he said, have failed to significantly improve development indicators. In fact, his study gave weight to one of the biggest criticisms of SEZ policy, that they were little more than real estate plays intended to benefit politicians and local developers rather than being used for wider developmental goals as was the case in China. Crucially, Alcorn pointed out, given that the SEZs were real estate plus plays, the SEZ location was less than optimal. The rent seeking meant that site selections of SEZs were often controlled or heavily influenced by state governments, which meant that these investments were poorly matched for market conditions and poorly suited for private or public investment in development infrastructure. With this background, a proposal aired by the former Vice Chairman of Niti Aayog, Dr. Arvind Panagaria, becomes specially relevant. Back in 2015, Dr. Panagaria advocated the setting up of coastal economic zones, CEZs, adjacent to deep draft ports, thus bypassing to a considerable extent the logistics and connectivity problems associated with moving the output of SEZs to the nearest port. It is relevant to take a fresh look at this proposal for three important reasons. First is the need for a massive infrastructure boost and public works program to pump prime the economy. Such activity in quickly building these very large CEZs, 3 on the east coast and 3 on the west, with the associated internal and external infrastructure, could fit in very well with a new public works program. Second, the reason for revisiting a coastal CEZ program is that in the post-COVID world, global manufacturing companies are looking to de-risk their supply chains by moving factories outside of China and other countries. India should be a prime candidate, and CEZs would be a credible pitch for some of that manufacturing to move to India. The pitch should include the elimination of bureaucratic and regulatory hassles within such zones, a common complaint of potential FDI investors. Third and finally, Panagaria's basic thesis was to use coastal economic zones as the springboard to launch a new generation of modern yet labor-intensive exports such as garments, light engineering, gems and jewelry, leather and furniture. This is all the more important now considering the need to rev up employment levels across the country. As others have pointed out, the other key feature of China's approach, which is worth emulating, was decentralization. Local governments were the drivers of the CEZ policy, with local bureaucrats and party functionaries being given promotions and other benefits linked to the economic progress of their area. As Lotta Moberg of George Mason University had pointed out in a research article in 2015, comparing the Indian and Chinese SEZ policy, the differentiating factor for China was that decentralization was important in making China's CEZ scheme robust and hence a key component in its success. Ironically, India already has an example where decentralization has been the key to economic success in specific regions. The so-called non-major ports, an euphemism for private ports such as Mundra, Kakinada and Pipavav, have become key to India's export drive. These ports, under the administration and control of state governments and with much more autonomy in decision making than the major ports, again an euphemism for centrally controlled ports, account for a large chunk of Indian exports today. This success makes such ports and similar new ports ideal candidates for the setting up of coastal economic zones. Thus, getting on with CEZs ticks all the boxes required in the here and now: a credible public works program, creating jobs and investments, spurring exports, and serving as the new face of India to attract foreign direct investment. This was actually the original Chinese model as well. China established 4 large CEZs along its coast and located them close to Taiwan and Hong Kong. The key was location. This maximized the ability of the new CEZs to draw of business from these other much developed states. Further, coastal location allowed these firms to operate in world markets unhindered by the poor infrastructure in the hinterland. They could import inputs from and export outputs to foreign destinations with ease. Employment opportunities for Chinese workers multiplied, as Dr. Panagaria had pointed out in his report. Part of Dr. Panagaria's proposals is being implemented as part of the Sagarmala project, which envisages the development of ports and importantly port infrastructure, connectivity and port hinterland development, increasingly so with the new landlord model for India's major ports. It is logical therefore to move to the next step of formally setting up coastal economic zones. The key benefit is the kind of firms that would be attracted to such coastal economic zones. Large-scale companies with high ability to employ large numbers of workers with high capability for technology absorption and transfer. These CEZs would act as beacons of infrastructure and regulatory improvements and providing a huge demonstration effect for the art of the possible in the rest of the country. It would be worthwhile for India to consider setting up coastal economic zones now. Thank you.